Hello guys and welcome back to the road to 1600. I realize in all my intros I've never actually explained why the goal is 1600, but currently that is double my rating, so that's why it's the goal. And today we're going to start off at 787 and we are back to the London system. We were pretty evenly matched throughout the game, but it all came down to the end game. There was a couple mistakes by both sides, if you can look right below. And if you're just finding the channel for the first time, feel free to subscribe as we continue to grow. And with that, let's go take a look. Alright, let's jump into this game review. I'm playing as white, and like I said, starting off at 787. We're going up against 886, and I think this is probably the highest rated opponent I've played so far. So honestly, I'm feeling a little nervous going into this game. But I start off with the London. I've been practicing the London. I've been wanting to stick to one system or one opening, and the London for me is kind of straightforward, so I'm paying attention to his moves, but I have a certain set of moves in mind that I want to play. And so I see him getting things out onto the king's side, and I just want to develop normally. You know, I want to get my pawn structure. I see he castles, and I'm just thinking, let's just play this normally. I don't see any immediate threats right now. I got my eye on that E and the D pawns to see if I can take, you know, the coveted E5 space. But he's got a nice setup right now. He's got three pieces developed, really. And he's doing a nice job kind of getting out in the early game. So I finally reach a spot where I like where I'm at. And so after watching a couple videos, they said if you get pressured, rock back onto G3, so that way if they end up taking you, you can take with your H2 pawn and open up your rook. But I didn't see this, and I only saw this in the game review. But he should have pushed his pawn straight ahead, because he would have walked right into a fork of my bishop and my knight, while his pawn was protected by his knight and the rook. So he's actually got a pretty good defense going on right now, and he does have my pawn pinned with his rook. So I take with my outside pawn, try to maintain a little bit of control of that center and a little bit of that pyramid. But he kind of pushes one piece at a time, and I want to play a little defense. And he's done really well with, you know, keeping that open file on the E file directly at my king, and so I need to be conscious that my queen is sitting right behind that as well. He's doing a nice job getting everything developed and putting some pressure on my spaces immediately. And so he starts to advance a little bit. I maintain that pawn structure, but I'm also keeping an eye on his king and those light squares leading up to it, because my bishop's got a nice sight on it, my queen can get a nice sight over there, I can move that knight over. I'm trying to play a little bit of defense, but just keeping my eye on the right hand side of the board. And what I did here, I kind of messed up a little bit. I moved my bishop out, so I said, okay, you can take my queen with your knight, but if you do that, I'm going to take your queen with my bishop. And then I can just capture with my king, or I can rock back with my bishop. And I can get that rook out of the center of the board there. So, I don't know if that was necessary. And this is where I messed up. I should have taken with my knight, so then I could also protect my bishop. But I take with my queen and leave my bishop hanging. So not a great play for me on that one. I really need to do better. But I force his queen out. I end up long castling because he's got a lot of forces on that right side of the board, and so I want to put my king onto the other side of the board. So don't understand that move. But now I got my eye squarely on the right side of the board up there. So, hey there, sweetie. Alright, so I'm going to let this play. So I think he also kind of has the same thing, and I'm trying to clean up that right side of the board. He's putting some pressure on my queen, and so we kind of have an interesting little game going on here. He's got pressure on that pawn from the bishop, from his queen, and from the rook. So I also have pressure on my pawn from my queen, my bishop, and my knight. So that e4 pawn right now is pretty vital to this game in maintaining control of that center. So I want to move my queen eventually, so I want to back up that pawn. But I also see that if I move that pawn up and I move my queen, he's got a straight shot down to my rook. So I did see that. I think in previous games maybe I would not have seen that. So he's moving on the queen side over there. And now I'm going to try to mount a little bit of an assault here onto his side. I did see that if he then brought his queen down to b2, I'd have to move over here anyway. I wouldn't be able to take his queen because he's protected by his bishop. So I preemptively moved my king with the idea that he was moving to b2. And then he moved to b2, so I was pretty proud of myself. And I was looking at, my knight. Okay, he can take my knight with his queen. I can take back. Nothing immediately is under pressure. If he puts me into check, I can slide up to e2 to try to get out of that check and then put some pressure on his queen while also defending my rook, because what happened a couple games ago. I don't want to lose both my rooks like that. But I see that the queen over in the left isn't immediately threatening me. So I want to take this opportunity to try to poke a hole in his pawn structure over on the king side. So after some trades, we opened up the F file. And now I got my eye on moving up to h7. He sees that. So I'm just going to try to wiggle around. I'm going to try to take his pawn right in front of his bishop. And I was also kind of thinking this, if he puts me in check, I swing right around, I put some pressure on him. Yeah, you can have that pawn. It really wasn't doing anything for me, and I need to focus my assault over on the right side of the board. So let's scoop up this pawn, and then I can rock back, and I can take that pawn, or I can... yeah, I'm still focusing on that right side of the board. So he then takes me with his bishop, and so... I was a little bit worried here, and thankfully, and I didn't plan this, my queen is defending that bishop right now after I take back. So he can take me with his rook all he wants, but I'm going to take him with my queen, and we'll go from there. But I got my eye on taking that bishop on the h-file to try to then get into his house and play the check game. So I didn't plan for my queen to be right there defending my bishop, but that's just kind of how it worked. So I wasn't too upset about it. So he's going to put some direct pressure on me. My queen is defended by my bishop, like I said. So let's get into check and let's see if I can start moving some stuff around. We go into check again. He blocks. Maybe I should have taken here to move his bishop out of the way. That bishop has proven to be a little feisty throughout the entire game. Maybe I should have taken here. I'm not sure. But I see the free pawn, so I go and scoop it up, and this way it'll open my queen up with that rook. So he is putting some direct pressure on that bishop now after he slid his rook over. I think I had a couple blunders right here when I was playing in this middle to end game. Yeah, that was a good move by him. I really didn't know how to handle this, and it looked like I was going to lose my bishop because he was pinned. So good play. Good play. Check again. Start dancing to get out of the checks. Another check. I want to stay close to these two pieces. I don't want to leave my knight hanging like I've done in the past. So I'm trying to stay close to everything here. So good take. I'll take back. Okay, fair enough. I've got 4 pieces. He's got 3. So let's keep it that way, and maybe we can start whittling some stuff away. So I saw that if I had taken with my knight, he could have just taken my knight for free. So I didn't want to take with my knight there. So I moved over into check, And my goal was to eventually slide up onto the H-file or have my knight slide up. But we're coming up to a big mistake here for my opponent. Right there. He was being aggressive, and I could see what his plan was. Take me, and I got lucky. I can't say I necessarily planned this, but if he took my knight, that would have been checkmate. But he left his queen open, and so now he's down pretty significantly. So, and what I should have done here, after he pushed his pawn up, was just slide right underneath his pawn. And that would have made life infinitely more simple. But I got scared. I dodged it. I figured, oh, I have my rook over there, so I can take, but that's going to leave me down a rook. And so I really didn't play that well. But I just had to figure, let me get something here. If we can just continue to check, maybe I can get a couple other pieces. But I did not play that well. So after a couple more instances, I figured I moved my knight up. He wasn't doing anything right now. And that actually was really helpful, to move my knight up into his area. So now he doesn't have a lot of room to wiggle around in here right now. He's got h7 and he's got f7 blocked off, and he can't advance forward because of his bishop. He's really only got, f8 to move to because my queen is right there. So he's kind of trapped sitting there in the corner. So I'm going to move up to a protected space. Yeah, I'm just testing out, see where I can go. I see this open pawn, and because my knight is there and he is protecting h7, I think I start to see it first before he does. And granted, this game took a long time. It was about a 45-minute game, because you take a look at our clocks, and by the time he moves or when he resigns, there isn't a whole lot of time left. So I put him into check. Yeah, we go down to 140, 139 there. And eventually he resigns. Because if he has moved his bishop up, I take his bishop. Or if he moves his rook up to block the check, I take his rook. And it's eventual checkmate. And so he was doing the math in his head as I was. And we came to the end there. So as you saw in the opening, I definitely could have played better. There was a couple big mistakes that I made if you look at just the bounciness of the chart. But it was a good game. It was a good game. I felt I had a pretty good structural approach to the opening. And I didn't overextend myself into unprotected areas too much. Yes, it came down to my opponent blundering his queen. And I'll be honest, I think I got a little lucky with that. But I'll take it. I'll take it. We're trying to grow. We're trying to learn. We're trying to be better. So yeah, like I said, I'll take it. So if you've made it this far in the video, I greatly appreciate it. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks.